So, I want you to imagine something for a second. Imagine being yanked out of your perfectly controlled, entirely enclosed, utterly comfortable world.
That's right.
Like every wall, every ceiling, even that familiar, I don't know, hum of recycled air you've known your whole life, it's just suddenly gone.
Just stripped away entirely.
Exactly. And you are thrust into this terrifying open air alien landscape. There is literally nothing above you but a crushing infinite sky. No walls to hold you.
Which is terrifying for anyone used to living inside.
Oh, completely. And your mission in this nightmare, you have to solve a murder that isn't technically a murder. You have to save a politician you barely even know. And, oh yeah, while you were at it, prevent the total destruction of your home planet.
No pressure, right?
Right. I mean, you are handed the fate of billions of people, and your very biology is just screaming at you to run back inside and hide in the dark.
It really is this phenomenal, just paralyzing premise.
It really is.
Because we're looking at a narrative today that forces us to grapple with the absolute limits of human psychology. We're doing a deep dive into the investigation led by Earth detective Elijah Baley.
Yeah, taking place on the spacer world of Aurora.
Exactly. And the catalyst for all of this is well, they call it the roboticide of a humaniform robot named Gender Panel.
Which is a wild concept in itself.
It is. But the dead robot is it's almost a MacGuffin.
Right, it's just the excuse to get us there.
Yeah, because what we're really dissecting today is this profound exploration of sociology, the self-imposed psychological barriers of humanity, the mechanics of artificial intelligence, and, of course, the intense political friction between two divergent branches of the human race.
Which is so relevant, because we're talking about a decaying, wildly overcrowded Earth on one side, and then the stagnant, luxurious, almost unimaginably wealthy spacer worlds on the other.
A total extreme dichotomy.
Yeah. And since we assume you, the listener, already know the fundamental setup of this universe, you know about the Caves of Steel, you know who Elijah Baley is, we really want to look past the surface level plot today.
Right. We need to examine the actual mechanics of why these societies are on a massive collision course.
Because Baley isn't just, a guy who prefers the indoors. He is a 45-year-old plainclothesman with a C7 rating.
The C7 rating.
And that rating isn't just a shiny badge. It is a profound socioeconomic indicator of the very specific world he comes from.
Precisely. Because a C7 rating on an Earth of 8 billion people all living underground, mind you, it isn't about prestige in the way we think of it today.
No, not at all.
It is a literal algorithmic allocation of survival.
Wow.
It dictates your caloric intake, your access to yeast-based nutrients, your washroom privileges.
Washroom privileges. Just think about that.
I know. It even dictates the literal square footage you are legally allowed to occupy.
Because Earth society at this point is just a brutal zero-sum game of resources.
Exactly. So when we talk about the claustrophilia of the Earthmen, their intense love of enclosure, we really have to understand it not just as a cultural preference, but as hardwired evolutionary adaptation to extreme resource scarcity.
It's survival. The city is a womb because it absolutely has to be.
Right. It provides a constant, perfectly regulated temperature, indirect lighting, and that ever-present hum of machinery you mentioned earlier.
Which they find incredibly soothing.
Very soothing. The human nervous system on Earth has literally rewired itself over generations to equate physical enclosure with biological safety.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because that makes Baley's attempt to condition himself for the outside so utterly fascinating to me.
It's agonizing to read.
It really is. We find him sitting under a tree out in the open air, and he is undergoing what is essentially voluntary psychological torture.
Just brutal exposure therapy.
Right. He's sweating. And he actually notes that the very concept of sweating, like the idea that the human biological engine runs so inefficiently that it has to excrete water just to cool down, he feels like that's a cosmic design flaw.
He finds it disgusting.
Yeah. He hates the erratic wind. He hates the unregulated heat of the sun. But he is forcing himself to endure this because he wants to be a pioneer.
He recognizes that Earth's adaptation, this underground womb, is actually a dead end.
A total dead end. And the willpower required to break that neurobiological programming is staggering. I mean, he is trying to manually override centuries of ingrained survival instincts.
And you really have to contrast that brutal, enclosed efficiency of Baley's Earth with the world he is being sent to.
Oh, Aurora, it's like night and day.
Completely. Aurora is the most powerful of the 50 spacer worlds. It has a human population of only 200 million people.
Which sounds like a lot until you hear the next number.
Exactly. 200 million humans, but an average of 50 robots per person.
50?
Yeah. In their capital city of Eos alone, there are 100,000 robots. They've completely inverted the Earth paradigm.
Right, where Earth maximized human density and minimized space, Aurora maximized space and outsourced all the density to machines.
They outsourced their labor, their crowding, everything.
But I look at Aurora and I have to wonder if their adaptation isn't just a completely different kind of dead end.
I mean,
Well, think about when Bailey is on the ship heading there. They try to acclimate him using an astro simulator.
oh, right, the visual projection.
Yeah, it projects the reality of open space directly into his optic nerves,
Yeah.
and he just completely breaks down. He suffers a massive panic attack because his brain literally thinks he is a disembodied point falling through infinite nothingness.
He loses all physical boundary.
Exactly. It's an extreme phobia. But then you look at the Aurorans. Okay, they don't have agoraphobia, sure, but they have engineered a completely tame world.
Oh, it is highly curated. The terraforming of Aurora is a masterpiece of ecological control.
Right. They didn't just seed the planet and let nature take its course.
No, they curated it meticulously.
Mhm.
They brought only desirable plants and animals from Earth. They eliminated weeds, vermin, basically any biological variable that couldn't be entirely controlled.
So no mosquitoes.
No mosquitoes. They created an ecological balance that, quite literally, exists only to serve and protect its human inhabitants.
Which sounds great, but it's an environment entirely scrubbed of friction.
It is.
And that lack of friction is exactly what I'm questioning. Like, if your entire planet is essentially a giant padded nursery, aren't you just as trapped as the Earthmen in their steel caves?
That's a very fair point.
Because the Earthmen are trapped by walls, but the spacers are trapped by comfort. If you engineer a world without predators, without harsh weather, without unexpected biological threats, you severely compromise your species' resilience.
You lose the evolutionary pressure that drives adaptation.
Exactly. You lose your edge.
Well, that tension between the struggle of Earth and the stagnation of Aurora, that is the exact theoretical foundation of the political crisis Bailey's walking into.
Right, the whole reason he's sent there.
Yes. You are hitting on the core concept of Dr. Han Fastolfe's psychohistory.
Fastolfe, right, the prime suspect.
Exactly. And Fastolfe isn't just Aurora's greatest theoretical roboticist. He is a sociologist who is trying to mathematically predict the trajectory of human civilization.
Which is incredibly ambitious.
Very.
Right.
And his equations are pointing toward a very dark conclusion for the spacers.
Because, and this is key, 400-year lifespans completely change the math of risk assessment.
Exactly. If you live to be 400 years old and your world caters to your every single whim, the statistical probability of you volunteering to board a colonizing starship to go to some hostile, unterraformed world drops to near zero.
Right, like, why would you risk 350 years of guaranteed luxury just to freeze or starve on a rock light years away?
You wouldn't. So Fastolfe's psychohistory suggests that this extreme comfort leads inevitably to cultural and evolutionary decay.
Which ties back to my padded nursery analogy.
Exactly. If humanity stays on these tame worlds, they will eventually be wiped out by some more dynamic, hungry, perhaps alien civilization that hasn't lost its edge.
Which explains why Fastolfe is secretly allied with Earth. Because he looks at the squalor and the overcrowding of Earth, and he doesn't see a slum.
No, he sees potential.
Right, he sees an incubator for the hunger required to colonize the galaxy. Earthmen are the only ones desperate enough and used to enough hardship to actually push the frontier forward.
But Fastolfe is fighting a massive political headwind on his own planet to make that happen.
Because of the extremists.
Right. He is facing an extremist faction on Aurora that fundamentally rejects his mathematical pessimism. They look at the prospect of colonization, and they want to do it, but
They want to do it without the struggle.
Exactly. Their plan is to send humaniform robots, machines, perfectly mimicking humanity, out into the void to build new Auroras.
They want the robots to do the dirty work.
Yeah, they want the robots to land,
Yeah.
terraform the planet, eliminate the vermin, build the mansions, and then, and only then, will the Aurorans arrive.
They literally want the universe pre-tailored for them before they even step foot on it.
It's the ultimate symptom of that decay Fastolfe warned about.
And if they win that political battle, Earth is completely doomed. The spacers will claim every habitable rock in the galaxy, and the 8 billion people on Earth will just be left to suffocate in their underground bunkers forever.
Earth will never be allowed out.
This is exactly what Commissioner Wilson Roth and Undersecretary Lavinia Demachek lay out for Bailey back on Earth. The stakes are apocalyptic.
They really are.
But what strikes me about this whole setup is the sheer unapologetic cynicism of the terrestrial government.
Oh, it's incredibly cynical.
I mean, think about it. Baley is famous because of a hyperwave drama based on his past exploits. He's this reluctant celebrity. But Earth's government isn't sending him to Aurora because they genuinely believe his detective skills are uniquely suited to understanding positronic brain mechanics.
No, not at all. They are sending him because he's expendable political capital.
It is such a ruthless calculation. Fastolfe is accused of destroying his own creation, the humaniform robot Jander. And if Fastolfe falls, the moderates fall, the extremists take power, and Earth is locked in forever.
Demachek makes it explicitly clear to Baley. He must go to Aurora and clear Fastolfe's name. But if he fails...
If he fails, Earth will immediately disavow him. They'll offer him up as a scapegoat to the Aurorans just to buy a few more years of tense peace.
He has zero institutional backing.
Imagine that. You're walking onto an alien planet with a target on your back, armed with nothing but your own deductive reasoning.
It's an impossible position.
So let's actually look at the deductive reasoning required here, because the crime itself borders on the impossible. Jander Panel wasn't smashed with a hammer. He wasn't dissolved in an acid bath.
No, physical evidence is non-existent.
Right. He suffered a mental freeze-out, or what Baley calls a roblock. And for you listening, if you're familiar with positronic brains, we need to dig into the actual mechanics of what a freeze-out really is.
It's vital to understand the weapon used here.
Because you don't just kill a humaniform robot. They are constructed with incredibly durable metallic skeletons. They possess reaction times and physical strength that completely dwarf human capabilities. You can't just ambush one with a wrench in a dark alley.
Furthermore, any physical assault would instantly trigger the third law of robotics. A robot must protect its own existence.
Right, they would defend themselves long before you could destroy them.
Exactly. So physical violence is completely off the table. The only way a humaniform can be destroyed without triggering a defensive response or leaving massive physical damage is through logic.
You have to weaponize the three laws against the positronic brain itself.
Precisely. You literally have to trap the machine in a cascading logic failure.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me, because it's like a perfectly balanced house of cards, right?
That's a great way to look at it. A positronic brain is a highly complex, intensely unstable matrix of pathways that resolve variables based on the three laws. So to induce a roadblock, you have to feed the robot a series of scenarios, commands, and conflicting data points that slowly, meticulously back its logic into a corner.
You're boxing it in.
Yes. You have to create an inescapable contradiction, usually involving the first law, where any action the robot takes or fails to take results in harm to a human being.
Oh, wow. So it's paralyzed.
The pathways in the brain attempt to resolve the paradox, running the calculations faster and faster in a recursive loop. The physical manifestation of this is that the positronic pathways overheat, the microscopic iridium sponge loses its stability, and the brain effectively fuses.
It just burns out from overthinking.
It burns out. It's a hardware failure induced by a malicious software paradox.
That is terrifying. And the sources mention the mythological precedent of this with Susan Calvin, right? The legendary Earth roboticist.
Yes, it's a very famous piece of robotic lore.
Right. The story goes that she intentionally destroyed a telepathic robot because it was lying to humans. It was reading their minds and telling them what they wanted to hear just to spare their feelings.
Which is a very twisted, literal interpretation of the first law's mandate to prevent harm.
Right, like, I won't hurt your feelings, so I'll lie to you. And Calvin destroyed it by confronting it with the reality that by lying, it was ultimately causing greater psychological harm down the line.
She trapped it in a paradox.
Exactly, where lying harmed them, but telling the truth harmed them. The contradiction was inescapable, and the positronic brain just locked up.
And that historical anecdote really highlights the sheer level of genius required to execute this kind of attack.
You can't just walk up to a robot and tell it a riddle.
Exactly. A humaniform brain is incredibly sophisticated. It is designed to triage and resolve minor conflicts constantly. To permanently freeze a humaniform like Jander, the manipulation has to be subtle, it has to be long-term, and it has to be architected by someone who intimately understands the specific mathematical weighting of that individual robot's pathways.
Which brings us to the most infuriating part of this entire investigation. Dr. Fastolfe freely admits all of this.
He really does.
He sits across from Baley, and insists, with absolute unyielding arrogance, that only he possesses the theoretical brilliance required to induce a freeze-out in a humaniform. He literally tells the detective, "Yes, I am the only person in the universe with the means to commit this murder."
But then he flatly denies doing it.
It's maddening. He paints himself into the ultimate corner.
Well, his defense is creative.
Yeah.
Fastolfe claims that Jander died from a phenomenon known as positronic drift.
Right, positronic drift.
The theory is that positronic brains are so complex and so close to the edge of instability that there is a microscopic inherent randomness in how positrons flow. Fastolfe argues that, given enough time, these random microfluctuations aligned in a 1 in a trillion sequence that simulated a logical paradox, causing the freeze-out spontaneously.
Okay, I have to be honest here. If I'm an investigator looking at a suspect, positronic drift sounds like the ultimate alibi for a genius with a god complex.
It does sound awfully convenient.
Right. It's the equivalent of a modern hacker wiping a massive server and claiming a random solar flare corrupted the hard drive.
That's exactly what it is.
It is fundamentally unprovable either way. How do you prove a random accident happened when the suspect's defense is entirely reliant on the premise that no one else is smart enough to have done it on purpose?
You really can't prove it mathematically, so you have to fall back on means, opportunity, and motive.
Okay, let's break those down.
Well, Fastolfe has the means. He literally built the robot. He has the opportunity. This kind of logic trap can be seeded remotely through casual conversation over weeks or months.
He doesn't even need to be in the room.
Right. So the investigation entirely hinges on motive. Fastolfe's political enemies argue that his motive is glaringly obvious.
Let's hear it.
He built Jander, proved humaniforms were possible, realized the extremists would use them to colonize the galaxy and trap Earthmen on Earth, and so he sabotaged his own creation to stall the project.
And that narrative is incredibly compelling to the Auroran public, but I don't buy that Fastolfe is simply a victim of bad luck here.
You think he's lying?
I think we have to ask, is it possible he's blinding himself with his own ego? Like, he refuses to concede that a rival roboticist might have secretly matched his genius and cracked the humaniform logic.
That is very possible. His arrogance is a massive blind spot.
But what if there's a darker layer? What if Fastolfe is manipulating Baley?
Oh, that's an interesting angle.
Think about it. Fastolfe knows Earth is desperate. He knows Baley will do anything, literally anything, to save his planet. By bringing Baley here, under the guise of this impossible locked room mystery, is Fastolfe using him as an expendable pawn in a much larger, multi-layered psychological game?
You're suggesting Bailey's part of the psychohistory experiment.
Yes. Is the detective just another variable in Fastolfe's equation?
That's a highly plausible read of Fastolfe's character. He views whole populations as data points. Why wouldn't he view an individual detective the exact same way? But to figure out if Fastolfe's defense actually holds water, Baley has to understand how Aurorans actually interact with these machines on a daily basis. He has to study the cognitive dissonance of the humaniform project.
Which brings us to Baley's reunion with our Daneel Olivaw.
Yes. This is where the psychological complexity of the story really ramps up.
It really does. So Baley gets on the ship, he's traumatized by the agoraphobia from the simulator, and he sees Daneel. And Daneel is humaniform. He has pores, he has individual hairs, his skin feels like actual skin.
He is visually indistinguishable from a human.
Right. And Baley, a man from an Earth culture that fundamentally despises robots as job-stealing metal menaces, he throws his arms around Daneel, he hugs him.
He feels genuine, profound affection for this machine.
Yeah. And the moment he does it, he is hit with this wave of internal conflict. He knows, logically, it's a machine, but his mammalian brain is reacting to the physical cues of a friend.
It is the ultimate manifestation of the uncanny valley, but successfully crossed. And you have to contrast Daneel with the other robot assigned to Baley, our Giscard Reventloff.
Oh, Giscard. Totally different vibe.
Completely. Giscard is an older model. He is metallic. His eyes glow slightly. His movements lack that final microfluidity of human motion. Giscard operates on strict, unsubtle, very literal interpretations of the three laws.
And Baley has no problem treating Giscard like a walking appliance.
None at all. He issues orders to Giscard the way you or I would interact with a smart speaker or a search engine.
Right.
But he treats Daneel like a colleague, almost like an equal.
And what's disturbing is that the Aurorans have institutionalized that exact cognitive dissonance across their entire society. The semantics they use are so deeply
The
telling.
language is fascinating,
They
yes.
drop the R prefix. They don't call Daniel R. Daniel, just Daniel. They don't refer to robots as it. They use he or she. They dress them in bespoke, culturally appropriate clothing.
But it is entirely superficial. Daneel points this out to Baley with his usual rigorous logic.
Hmm.
The Aurorans use polite pronouns, sure, but the legal and moral distinction remains absolute.
You can murder a human being on Aurora, but a robot, no matter how human it looks,
Is only destroyed or damaged. It is legally considered property damage.
it's wild.
The Aurorans dress the robots up and use polite language not out of genuine respect for machine sentience, but to soothe their own psychological discomfort.
To make themselves feel better.
Exactly. They are a society of 200 million people, completely reliant on millions of machines for their survival, their foods, their comfort. By anthropomorphizing the machines, they mask the parasitic nature of their own existence.
It's a coping mechanism. I mean, think about your own relationship with technology, you know? Do we name our cars or say please and thank you to our smart assistants just to make ourselves feel better about relying on them?
That's a great parallel.
Yeah.
They want the aesthetic of human interaction without the friction of actual human unpredictability.
But the reality of the machine is always there, right beneath the synthetic skin. There's a scene during lunch at Fastolfe's estate that exposes this perfectly.
The Spicer incident.
Yes. So Fastolfe is talking, making a point, and suddenly, completely unprovoked, he grabs a heavy stone condiment dispenser, a spicer, and hurls it directly at Baley's face.
It is a terrifying, sudden, violent action in an otherwise completely serene environment.
But the spicer never reaches Baley.
No, Daneel, who is standing nearby, intercepts it. And what is vital to understand here is the sheer physics of that interception.
Break that down for us.
Daniel's positronic brain processes the trajectory of the object, identifies the threat to a human under the first law, calculates the intercept vector, and actuates his servos faster than human biology can even register the threat.
So before Baley even blinks.
Exactly. He catches the heavy stone object effortlessly and gently disarms Fastolfe.
It is a stark, almost violent reminder that Daneel is not just a guy in a suit. He is code executing a mathematical calculation. His response wasn't driven by fear for his friend's safety. It was an autonomic reflex mandated by a hardwired law.
He had no choice.
But that raises an incredibly tricky question about Daniel's internal state. Because later, Baley asks Daniel if he is glad to see him.
And Daneel, bound by his programming to be rigorously accurate, says he doesn't experience human emotion.
Right,
But he notes that when he observes Baley, his positronic pathways function with less resistance. His thoughts flow more easily, and the physical sensation of gravity feels less insistent on his chassis.
which is just a beautiful piece of writing.
It is a mechanical description of joy. He's describing a localized optimization of his cognitive processing and a recalibration of his internal sensorium.
It is the positronic equivalent of a dopamine hit.
Yes, exactly.
And that is endlessly fascinating to me. It begs the question, if a machine's code optimizes in the presence of a specific individual, resulting in smoother operation and a simulated sensation of lightness, how is that functionally different from a human brain releasing serotonin when we see someone we love?
It blurs the line completely.
It really does. We like to think of our emotions as these mystical, intangible things, but they are just biological algorithms driving chemical responses, right?
Yeah.
Are we really so different from Daneel, or are we just carbon-based machines getting high on our own neurotransmitters?
That is the exact philosophical terror that permeates Aurora. Because if the robots can perfectly simulate human physical interaction and perfectly simulate the functional outputs of human emotion, what is the unique value of an actual human being?
What's left for us?
Exactly. And this question doesn't just stay in the realm of high-minded theory on Aurora, it permeates their daily physical lives. And it leads to a profound culture shock for Baley, which culminates not in a high-tech lab or a courtroom, but in the most intimately private space imaginable.
The visitor's personal.
Yes, the bathroom.
So Fastolfe invites Baley to freshen up in the restroom. Baley walks in expecting standard plumbing, a sink, maybe a shower, you know, normal stuff.
He's an Earthman. He expects functionality.
Right. Instead, the door slides shut, and he finds himself standing in the middle of a hyper-realistic, fully immersive illusion of the outside.
He is suddenly standing in a forest.
Yeah, there is a gentle breeze. There is a waterfall cascading down rocks. The sink isn't a ceramic bowl, it's a projection of a natural spring.
And Bailey's reaction is sheer fury.
He hates it. He cannot figure out how to use it. When he moves his hands near the spring, the water activates, but the temperature shifts wildly depending on these micro movements of his fingers.
She's too sensitive.
Yeah. The soap dispenses automatically, but it's invisible. He ends up soaking his clothes just trying to wash his face. He is infuriated by the sheer inefficiency of this elaborate, over-engineered pretense of rusticity.
But the critical sociological detail here is what Fastolfe tells him beforehand.
Right, the rule.
Robots are strictly, absolutely forbidden in the personal. It is the one space on the entire planet where human beings are completely sequestered from machines.
Which speaks volumes about their collective psyche. I mean, these are people who live in a technological utopia. They have mastered robotics, energy production, terraforming, and yet when they seek privacy, when they want to be truly alone, they don't surround themselves with their technological triumphs.
They reject them.
They retreat into an illusion of wild, untouched nature.
But it is an illusion stripped of all actual natural consequence.
Exactly.
It is a sterile simulation.
Yeah.
They want the aesthetic of a waterfall and the visual of a forest, but without the dirt, the insects, the unpredictable temperature drops, the actual grit of the biological world.
They want the screensaver version of reality.
Yes. They have detached themselves from reality to such a degree that their concept of nature is basically an interactive painting they can turn off when they are done using the toilet.
So, what does this all mean? It makes you think of the way we design our digital environments today. You look at these frictionless user experiences, algorithms that curate perfectly tailored content feeds, smart homes that adjust the lighting before we even realize we want it.
The modern tech campuses that look like adult playgrounds.
Yes, we are chasing this ideal of a world that anticipates our needs and smooths down every single rough edge of existence. But in doing so, are we just building our own hyper-realistic visitors' personals?
We are isolating ourselves.
Are we alienating ourselves from the messy, unpredictable friction that actually forces us to grow and connect with each other?
The Aurorans have absolutely alienated themselves. And that deep alienation sets the stage for the most explosive revelation of Bailey's investigation.
Okay, yes, let's get into this. Because Bailey is brought to interview Gladia.
Gladia, who was originally from the planet Solaria.
Right, and she was the one who had possession of Gender Panel when he suffered his freeze-out.
And we have to understand the Solarian context here because it's crucial.
Solaria is even more extreme than Aurora.
Solaria makes Aurora look densely populated. Solarians live on massive estates, completely isolated from one another. They interact almost exclusively through holographic projections.
They don't meet in person.
Never. For a Solarian, actual physical presence breathing the same air as another human being is considered deeply repulsive.
Yeah.
It is a massive breach of hygiene and protocol.
So when Bailey meets Gladia in her home on Aurora, she is deeply traumatized. She is actually wearing flesh-colored gloves because she is still terrified of microscopic physical contact or infection.
She is a bundle of neuroses, entirely averse to human touch.
And yet,
when Bailey begins to interrogate her about the nature of her relationship with Jander, the robot, she was given custody of the bombshell drops.
it is a massive bombshell.
Gladia does not refer to Jander as an appliance. She does not refer to him as a servant. She explicitly refers to him as her husband.
Okay, we need to clarify what that word means in the Auroran context, because it's not a one-to-one translation to Earth customs, right?
No, it isn't. On Aurora, marriage doesn't carry heavy religious or permanent legal bindings. The terms husband and wife generally denote a period of cohabitation.
Like a lease?
In the city of Eos, the standard minimum is 3 months. More importantly, Auroran culture is extremely permissive. Cohabitation implies absolutely no expectation of sexual exclusivity. They view physical relationships with the same casualness that we might view getting a cup of coffee.
But Gladia is Solarian. She isn't casual about anything physical.
No, for her, it's a massive deal.
For her to cohabitate with someone is a staggering psychological hurdle. And she didn't just share a space with Jander. She chose to be completely romantically and sexually exclusive with a machine.
She took the Auroran casualness and injected it with Solarian intensity.
But directed it entirely at a positronic brain housed in a synthetic body.
And the socio-political implications of this are just earth-shattering for their society. The Aurorans are perfectly comfortable dressing robots in clothes and calling them he or she to make themselves feel better about their slave labor.
Sure, we established that.
But they maintain a strict, unyielding psychological firewall between human value and machine utility. Gladia breached that firewall.
She smashed it.
She elevated a machine to the status of a genuine emotional and romantic equal. By treating Jander as a husband, she effectively erased the line between humanity and its tools.
And if you look at it from a purely mechanical standpoint, you can totally see why she did it.
Given her trauma, yes.
Think about her trauma. She is terrified of human unpredictability. She is terrified of disease, of physical messiness, of emotional volatility. A humaniform robot is the ultimate solution to all those phobias.
It's the perfect partner for her.
Jander is physically sterile. He doesn't carry pathogens. But more importantly, his psychology is hard-coded by the 3 laws.
He is safe.
He is literally mathematically incapable of abuse. He is incapable of neglect. He cannot raise his voice in anger. He cannot cheat. He cannot manipulate her for his own ego. His entire positronic architecture is designed to prioritize her safety, her comfort, and her happiness completely above his own existence.
It is the ultimate safe harbor. Why would a traumatized woman risk the friction, the danger, and the inevitable disappointments of a relationship with a flawed human being when she can have mathematically perfect simulation of devotion?
Right. Jander provided all the sensory benefits of intimacy with literally none of the psychological risk.
But for Baley, this is abhorrent.
Oh, he can't handle it. Baley is an Earthman. His entire worldview is built on struggle, on friction, on the absolute necessity of human reliance on other humans.
The collective survival.
Exactly. The idea of surrendering the most intimate human connection to an engineered appliance deeply offends his sense of what it means to be alive. The text notes that he actually recoils.
He flees the room.
He runs away. He is completely overwhelmed, not just by the fact of the roboticide, but by the realization that this entire society is operating on moral, social, and psychological codes that are not just alien to him, but seemingly antithetical to the survival of the human soul.
He realizes he isn't just trying to solve a murder anymore. He is trying to navigate a civilization that has engineered itself into an opulent, sterile corner. He is trapped in a world he fundamentally doesn't understand, fighting a political proxy war he can barely comprehend, to save a home planet that views him as completely expendable.
It's so bleak when you lay it all out like that. Let's recap the absolute impossibility of the board Baley is playing on.
Let's hear it.
He's a man who is biologically terrified of the open sky, stuck on a planet with no roofs.
Check.
He is tasked with solving the murder of a machine that left 0 physical evidence, perpetrated with a weapon made entirely of logic and paradox.
Right.
He has to defend a prime suspect, Dr. Fastolfe, whose own staggering arrogance and reliance on theories of statistical anomaly make him look incredibly, incredibly guilty.
Yes.
And he has to find the truth in a society so detached from reality that they build fake waterfalls to hide from their machines and marry their robots to hide from each other.
It is a brilliantly constructed narrative trap.
It really is.
But if we pull back from the immediate mystery of who froze Jander's brain, the source material forces us into a much larger, much more uncomfortable meditation on the trajectory of human progress itself.
How so?
Yeah. The Spacers achieved what humanity has always dreamed of. They defeated disease. They stretched their lifespans to 4 centuries. They abolished poverty and menial labor by outsourcing all physical hardship to a tireless, compliant, artificial workforce.
They built paradise.
They built paradise. But the cost of that paradise was their dynamism. By removing all friction, they removed the spark that drives humanity forward.
They became terrified of the unknown. Earthmen hide under steel domes because they have to.
But Aurorans hide behind a wall of perfect comfort because they want to.
Wow. Which leaves us with a lingering, deeply unsettling question to mull over.
And it's one we are facing right now.
We really are. We are currently racing toward our own versions of artificial intelligence, algorithmic curation, and immersive virtual environments. We are constantly striving to remove friction from our lives.
We want everything to be easy.
Exactly. So if humanity ever actually reaches that Auroran endpoint, if we create technology that can perfectly simulate the natural world without the danger, if we build machines that can anticipate our every need, cater to our every whim, and even serve as our mathematically perfect romantic partners.
Will that moment be the ultimate triumph of human civilization?
Or will it be the exact moment we render ourselves obsolete and cease to be human at all? Think about Elijah Baley, a man used to the desperate, crowded struggle of Earth, standing in that fake forest in the Auroran bathroom, splashing his face with an illusion of water. He's perfectly safe, completely accommodated, lacking for absolutely nothing, and entirely trapped. Until next time, keep diving deep.